I know I did it backwards from what a lot of people do. I built the whole thing and then I'm narrowing it down. What I find in event tech, the problem is very rarely the tech. It's the people around the tech. The worst thing you can do is send out an invite to 5,000 people and have 3 show up.
Today I'm here with Jen Santos. Jen is an event technology specialist with over 30 years of experience translating chaos into clarity, first in IT and now in the event tech space through Smart Event Academy, where she helps event teams build smarter and more sustainable events with a human-first approach. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you for that very generous introduction. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Would you like to share the why behind Smart Event Academy?
Sure. I've been working in event and event tech for a little over a decade now. And I started before the pandemic and things were going pretty okay at that time. And then we went into the pandemic and the wheels bluntly came off. And what happened to our industry during the pandemic is obviously most events came to a standstill, right? In-person events were canceled for the better part of probably 2 years in most locations around the world. Those of us that could, we switched over to the digital format, which came with its own sets of challenges trying to move it over. But what we found as we started coming back is that we lost so much talent in the industry. And I realized coming out of the pandemic that, to be honest, we could be a lot better and that we lost a lot of that institutional knowledge that just sort of existed everywhere in our industry. And I realized that that was a problem that I wanted to work to fix. And so I thought, what is the most common problem that I see? And that is that people that are new to events and specifically new to event tech, they just don't know what they don't know. I was in that same position 15 years ago. I didn't know what these terms were. There's no standardization in the language that we use. Every client does it sort of the same, but not really. And I had kind of 2 objectives. One is that I wanted to be able to get my learners to be able to just understand like the lay of the land for how a typical event runs through the event tech lens. Like, what are the phases that we go through? What are the things you need to know? And then secondly, and actually the more important part of it is really around getting teams in alignment and working better together and asking the right questions. Because what I find in event tech, the problem is very rarely the tech. It's the people around the tech. If they don't know how to use it. And so I kind of put my mind to, let's do this training and create these training programs so that people can, step into their first live event actually knowing what they're doing. The industry in general doesn't have a lot of training behind it. And the training that does exist tends to be focused around certification paths for people that have been in the industry for a decade or more.
Mm. Yeah, that's tragic to lose all that knowledge and accumulated wisdom. But it's cool that you're sort of on a mission to centralize it and to make it easy for people to put on events. Because I guess for many businesses, it's either their primary source of income or it's a great supplemental source of income or a source of leads and sort of enterprise value, would you say?
Yeah, I work primarily in the corporate and association space. And in both of those, if you kind of dial back what an event is, right? An event at the end of the day, you do it because you want some sort of ROI. If you're an association, right, you want members. I mean, even for the people in your community, right? They hold an event because they're hoping to get members, they're hoping to do education, which ultimately is to create members and to create, members that are more competent. Maybe it is solely to drive revenue. It might be a paid event. It might be for some form of brand equity, which will
Mm.
lead to revenue down the road. It might be to improve your partner ecosystem, which again, the idea is more revenue down the road, but you can tie every single objective to having an event to improving the overall positioning of the hosting organization.
Makes sense. And this is quite a specialized niche. And I actually even hesitate to call it a niche because I think similar to what we do helping people with membership sites, it's industry agnostic in a sense that like what your clients probably share in common is that they're putting on an event, but they don't necessarily share the same industry or the same business model or anything like that, which kind of makes it hard to market in the space. But was there an aha moment that led you to prioritize the recurring value? You put emphasis on that on your website.
Yeah. So the driver of it for me and of course my learners, for me, as much as I love doing event delivery, the longer I do it, the more exhausting I find it, which isn't anything against events. But it's just that as I get older, I'm kind of looking for other ways to be able to honestly earn revenue. I'm not going to, try to hide that.
Mhm.
And then also, the way that I see and the way that I'm starting to see Smart Event Academy progress, right, is that events, while an event is a one and done type of activity, events as kind of a marketing method is something that is not going away and it's really only continuing to grow. I'm hearing a lot of we're moving into the connection economy, right? Social media is having less of a moment now. People are starting to wonder how much stuff is AI generated. And we hear a lot about like people want to connect. And that events is a big way to do that, right? And even in the corporate space, people want to be able to connect. They want to be able to share ideas. And it's almost like you have to be able to see somebody on a screen or in person to know that what you're talking to actually a person. And
Definitely.
so, anyway, my goal is to go back to that. Sorry, little soapbox there. But my goal here is that these organizations is not one and done for an event. They usually need ongoing support. And the type of work that I do around this event readiness and um, is really something that's not, you can't flip the switch in one event. Organizational change is hard. And so it's usually like a multi-year cycle. And so I don't want to come into one, swoop into one event, make some changes and say good luck with the rest of your life. I want to be there to provide that for my clients.
Makes sense, right? If it's a whether it's a marketing element in the business or whether it's how they generate revenue or whatever the nature of the ROI that your client is seeking, you want to make sure that they're able to do it well and to do it multiple times and to make sure that the first time they do it works so that they are encouraged to continue because it's very hard to put on an event. I've been to many events or I've been in many sort of groups and masterminds and business events, and it's pretty impressive. I mean, just renting the hotel, all this stuff, all the speakers, all the breakout rooms. It's a crazy amount of work, and if you don't do it right, you'd probably get discouraged and never want to do it again. You'd just be exhausted and out of money, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it. It can be a tremendous drain of money if you don't know what you're doing. It can be a tremendous drain of money if you do know what you're doing. Anyhow, right? But the idea is that you're doing it because you're expecting something on the backside. And if you haven't properly planned it, you aren't going to get that return for yourself later. We're not just party planners. We just don't know how to bring in a plate of hors d'oeuvres, right? There's a lot more that goes into it.
For sure. Do you have a perfect fit client, and who are you best able to help? Who benefits the most from what you offer?
Yeah. So, who benefits the most at the individual level, the learner level? It is early to mid career event professionals that either want to become familiar with event tech, right? Maybe it's not really part of their job, but on a lot of these smaller organizations, that end up being their job because there's no budget to pay for event tech. Or it's for somebody that really wants to go in all in on event tech. And so, from the early learner, it's probably 5 or less years of experience in the industry, and then what I'm seeing is a lot of corporate buyers actually, and they tend to be on the agency side. Agencies tend to churn through a lot of people and they always have people that they're bringing in new. And so they're interested in using my platform with my standardization and my standard way of thinking. I offer playbooks and all these things to make it because my goal really is to make it repeatable. And I want to give them all the tools that I can. And so they like that I provide a very solid foundation for their learners.
And is this for agencies? Is this for events that they do for clients and prospective clients, or for team, or for both?
They're usually serving in my space a corporate client. So they a lot of times a lot of these larger organizations that hold events, they actually bring in agencies to do all of it. They tend to have in-house a very small events team. And then they will outsource the logistics, they will outsource the event tech, they will outsource the food and beverage, the operations, the video production. And it's all agencies, typically smaller, but not always, that do that work.
I just got a flashback to my days working at the Sawgrass Marriott in Ponte Vedra, Florida, where I was in the banquet department, so we would do
Yep.
so many events, and it was actually pretty fun time.
Yeah,
Um,
the same thing.
yeah. Now you sounds like you mostly focus on B2B. Do you also have a B2C offering? I think I saw that on your site.
I I do have a B2C offering. I don't tend to get to be perfectly honest, I don't tend to get a ton of uptake on it because it's not it's an investment. We'll put
It's a
it
high
that
ticket
way.
offer.
It's a high ticket offer, exactly.
Mhm.
So, but I wanna make it available because there's people that are trying to do a corporate transition and they have the budget, to make that investment, and I wholly believe that it's worth it.
And for the corporate offer, do you offer seat-based pricing? Like, how do you price that? How do you sell to those folks?
That's exactly how I do it. So I'll offer somebody, okay, so we've got 10 seats, and then I say, okay, and you have this year to use these seats or something like that, and I work with them to figure out it's all because we're talking B2B, right? Every offer is different, but it's usually you're going to give me so many seats for this amount of time. Reasonably straightforward, actually, at the end of the day.
And I'd be curious if you're at liberty to talk about it, to walk me through kind of your, your lead acquisition process, and then how do you get on a call, or do you meet in person? Do you send a proposal? Like, what does the whole thing look like? Because it's usually a longer sales cycle for corporate.
Yeah. It totally is a longer sales cycle. So the way it's been working today is that I live in Brazil and my clients are all North America based, primarily US, a little bit of Canada. So I don't meet with them in person. And so it is somebody reaching out saying, "Hey, I heard about your program. And, I'd love to talk about it." So we'll get on a discovery call. I talk them through what the program actually is, give them a good sense of it. I provide them a full syllabus of all of my lessons. It's 68 lessons, so it's short. Be super clear. They're short lessons, but there's still 68 of them, right? And so I can show the breadth of the program and what they're going to get. And then from there, they're like, "Okay, that's great. What's the pricing going to look like?" I give them a ballpark, and then they're like, "Okay." And then it comes down to, okay, I need to make a budget ask,
Hmm.
right? And then it comes down to the budget review cycles.
Right. And then how do you design the actual customer journey in terms of, are there upsells, cross sells, and how do you drive retention for what you sell? Because I'm sure you don't want to just have one off customers either.
No, I certainly don't. So at the individual level, I do have one upsell that I offer into the program. I have a base offering that's kind of like 80% of the program. And then I have a secondary offering, which I think is a $500 upsell, if I remember my pricing right now. And that will take them into it's an add-on program. So you have to do the base program and then you can do the add-on program with that, but that's really focused on much more of a leadership track and how to step up and be a leader in the industry as opposed to just learning the nuts and bolts. Here's where you're also going to learn how to lead. And then with that, because my time is a premium, I offer I offer one-on-one coaching, but only people that go into that lead program, right? So not only do they get the additional modules and they have an in-depth project, like a capstone project to do, but they also get time with me.
Mm.
And so that's how I manage that's the one upsell that I offer into the program right now. And then what I do with the agent, primarily agencies, so I'll refer to them as agencies, the agencies I work with, right? Then there is an entire um review and feedback process, right? And so that's where it comes down to client retention management. What did you think? How did it go? You interested in more seats? And I take feedback. People ask, "Well, do you have a module on this?" And I'm like, I've intentionally actually recorded the program in a way that if I need to, I can drop modules in and out pretty easily.
Mm.
Like I worked really hard to make it so that I can pull a module out, put a new module in. Next phase, actually, as I'm getting feedback from people, is okay, I'm hearing that people really want mini courses of these different areas. And so the idea now is to start taking that feedback that I have and, I've got 68 lessons. Maybe we want 6 or 8 in a mini course, right? That I can sell for a lower price point because I built it so that it can be modular. And then with that modular build out, guess what? Then there's an upsell in
Mhm.
that takes up to the full course. So that's kind of next step. I know I did it backwards from what a lot of people do. I built the whole thing and then I'm narrowing it down. But for me, it was really important to have the whole thing so I could see how it all flowed together because I was concerned if I started doing the smaller courses that I would lose the through line, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And if you're already getting customers who are giving you feedback for the whole thing, then that's actually wonderful, because you're a lot of times people splinter out off a course, or they create like a free or a tripwire level offering, but they don't necessarily have the feedback from the market yet. They're
Yeah.
just making assumptions, right? So it's actually maybe even better the way that you did it. So it's like, sell stuff first, make money, and then get real feedback from real people, and then do what they need you to do. So that's probably the
Right.
way you should do it, actually. And is there still And now, I mean, with COVID over and everything, do people do online events? Is that something that you help people with, or are you focused on live events in particular?
No, I do both actually, and I am a strong, strong believer in continuing to do virtual events. If I can get on my little soapbox on on the importance of virtual events, because when we think about our attendees, right, the big thing for me in events is about belonging and inclusivity. And we want everybody to feel welcome, and not everybody has the means or the ability to go to a live event.
Mm,
And so I remember the very first virtual event that we did when the pandemic hit, and this woman filled out her survey and she said, "Thank you so much for doing this because I've wanted to attend for years and I never could because I have a disability and I wouldn't be able to get there. And now because of this, I'm able to double my rates."
nice.
Like, I get goosebumps just repeating that story to you, literally. And I think it is so important because we have people that don't have money. They have family situations. They can't leave their family behind, right? They don't, they have neurodivergency or disability issues and they can't. And I think we have to offer those people an alternative experience. Is it going to be the same? No, but it's an experience and they still have the opportunity to network and to learn and to get what they need out of it. And I think it is so important.
No, that's amazing. And let's say for kind of my audience was people who are doing membership sites, associations, online communities, and both B2B and B2C. Uh, we serve very much like yourself. How can a live event or a virtual event or multiple events
Mhm.
help bolster their business? And how does an organization know whether it's a channel into which they should because it probably there's a significant investment in putting on certainly a live event, but even a
Yeah.
virtual event, it's a huge opportunity cost because there's so many moving parts, it seems to me,
Right.
that you'd have to be pretty sure that this is the best use of your time and resources at the moment.
Yep. I think the big thing and the mistake tend to see people making, and I've made it myself as a small business owner, is that not having a sufficient audience, right? You need to have, I can't remember what it is that Seth Godin says, right? But you need to have like your
Like 1,000
100
true
true
fans, was
fans,
it?
12,000 true
1,000,
fans,
yeah.
right? 100, right? But like, let's say 100, right? You need to have those people that you know are going to show up that will follow you through the fire. Because the worst thing you can do is send out an invite to 5,000 people and have three show up, right? I think like you first need to have your community. And then even after you have a community, when I have done live events in a past life, it has been that I have hosted, right? I have gone through and I have specifically said, will you please come? Like, if you're trying to do even a small event of like 10, 25 people, because everybody has to start someplace, it's making sure that you've got a few true fans that are committed to coming, even if it's your sister that knows nothing, right? It's just making sure that somebody can be in that room with you. And I think that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so my takeaway from that is that if you don't have probably a really engaged and fairly large, like maybe tens of thousands of people email list, that this is probably not the highest ROI thing you could focus on until you build that up.
I completely agree. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and even if it's not necessarily a mailing list per se, but then it's getting a giant engaged following on, depending on your industry, right? A LinkedIn, an Instagram, but it's
Mhm.
that engagement. It's not just raw followers because we all know that game. It's actually getting engagement and DMs and having conversations and having good conversations. It's not just AI responses. But yeah, you need to have a really good size following before anything's gonna convert. I mean, what are the cold I mean, this isn't quite cold, but it's kinda like that. What is it? Like 2% is a good rate? I mean,
A
for cold
reply rate?
response. Yeah, right? So, you have to assume that you're not gonna get unless you're truly focused on a local community already, you're not gonna get a great response rate. You're just not.
Right. What have you seen events do for a business? Like what transformations or what have you seen as far as moving the needle from an event?
Um, what I see works really, really well actually is training in whatever form that that could be, right? But some sort of speaker, an educational event where there's a very clear outcome that people are going to get out of it. Those are the things that work.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. And
So it's
what
up
I
to the
see,
company.
what?
So it's kind of in the hands of the company in a sense.
That's holding the event, the hosting the event. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
What I don't tend to see work really well, and you've probably heard the same thing, is there's a lot of like these summits, right?
Yep.
Kind of like in the small business entrepreneur space. So they bring in like 10 people to have giant emailing lists in the hopes of getting 1,000 people to sign up. And uh, I have heard of very few of those actually working really well. Because when you try to borrowing somebody's audience like that is generally not something that works terribly well, and it can get really expensive really quick.
Yeah, for sure. You can also alienate your audience if you're too aggressive with that kind of thing as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. So what kind of technical challenges do you face, particularly around your site? So you use WordPress. I think you also use LearnWorlds. Full transparency, I found you through LearnDash through a list of sites that use LearnDash or used to use
Okay.
LearnDash. I don't
I
think you
did
use it
used to use
anymore.
LearnDash.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah.
How do you manage like your team, your tech, your hosting? How do you do all that stuff?
I have done most of it myself, and I hired somebody to help me do my website design and then set up LearnDash. And the challenge I had being a very small business owner is that I didn't have somebody that was full-time invested in it, right? So I'd get the course up and then I'd want to change something because you need to pivot as you learn from your audience, right? And I'd have to go, "Hey, can you come back in and work on something?" And it'd be like a month before he could get to it. And, and then it's like, "Oh, that's not really what I wanted you to do." And I just while I'm a technical person and I have good technical chops, the intricacies of LearnDash were honestly just too much for me. I will not lie. And I went to LearnWorlds because I found that to be just having something SaaS hosted that I didn't have to worry about keeping my 800 plugins up to date seemed really, really appealing.
And how
I
do you
was
like it? Just curious because a lot of our audience uses LearnDash. Um, well, we've had people switch from WordPress entirely to some kind of hosted solution for this
Mhm.
and other reasons, and vice versa, where people felt like they were hamstrung by the limitations of a particular SaaS, like Kajabi or whatever, and then they moved to WordPress, maybe not always knowing what they're getting themselves into. But how do you like LearnWorlds in particular? I haven't worked with it.
I actually really like it, and I think I just hit the point where I'm kinda like, I'm not gonna try to get it to bend to my will. Like, I'm actually which is what a lot of what I tried to do in LearnDash, which I think is why I struggled with it so much, is I was trying to make it do things. It's like, well, then you need these 3 plugins, and you need to configure on a Tuesday with a full moon if you're gonna get it to work. And so with LearnWorlds, I'm like, okay, however I build out my program, it's going to work within the confines of LearnWorlds without me having to really try to do a lot of configuration hijinks.
Nice. And I suppose for you that the sort of reduced flexibility is actually a positive constraint. It's like, well, okay, here's what I could do. Here are all the things I can do. And great, I don't have to think about other add-ons or pay another subscription or whatever.
Exactly. It was getting so expensive by the time I paid for LearnDash, and then I had Buddy Boss at one point, and then I needed to pay like the Uncanny Owl stuff, and then I was
Hmm.
paying this and I was paying that, and I was like, "Holy cow!" Like LearnWorld when I went to LearnWorlds, like I cut my cost by like 75%. Yeah.
And is it just you, or do you have a team that helps you with any of it?
I have a video guy that does my video editing because I realize that's not my strong suit. And then I do have actually a configuration specialist that I brought on to do the Learn World config for me just because I didn't again like when it comes to styling and design that's not my wheelhouse. And so she's doing all that for me, which is great. And then she's doing a lot of the setup for me as well just because I don't have time right now.
Amazing. So you're running lean.
I am running very lean. There's yeah, all of 3 of us. So, very very lean.
Well, let's close out with a few just fun questions. You live in Brazil.
I do.
Você fala português, não?
Fala sim.
Legal. Okay, and you're in Salvador da Bahia, which I've never been to Salvador, but I've heard it's beautiful and also quite safe and very culturally rich. Are you Brazilian? Is that how you wound up there?
No, I'm from the US originally, born and raised in Wisconsin, go Pack. And my husband, however, is from here. He is Soteropolitano. And so he's born and raised here. And I actually just like living here better than living there. So I tend to be very much a go getter. And my husband's a musician. And so we have learned to embrace the laid back Brazilian lifestyle as much as I'm capable of doing so. So,
Very, very awesome. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for about 15 years. So I've had a lot of interaction with Brazilians. I studied Portuguese in university. And then I actually moved my family to Floripa. And
oh,
after about a month there, as much as I love it, and especially the people and the beach and everything, the sort of difficulty of everything in
mhm.
Brazil was too much for us. So we returned to Thailand, where things are just extremely super duper convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bureaucracy in Brazil is not to be underestimated. It's a lot. I've been here for, like, 10 years now,
Yeah.
and I'm still come on.
Yeah. The people are wonderful though. That makes
Yeah.
everything good. Where can people find you, Jen? And what are your socials and your website and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so my website is smarteventacademy.com, where you can learn about my course, you can learn about my other programs, and then for social at this point, I'm basically just on LinkedIn under Jen Santos. So and there's not many Jen Santoses out there, I'm not very hard to find.
Okay, Jen, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, appreciate it, thank you.